All right. Good to see you, gentlemen, today. Welcome to the Humble Patron, the show that dives into everyday topics with Christian perspectives and values. I'm your host, along with my co hosts and men of the hour, C the Three, and Pastor Tim Taylor. How are you, gentlemen, doing today?
Pretty good.
I'm doing
Pretty
great.
good. You guys give me a little bit more, man. It's our first episode. We in the driver's seat. Tell me a little bit about your week, man. Let the people know a little bit about you. Give them a little spillage.
We're fresh off not too long the Thanksgiving holiday, so uh, that was always good as usual. Got to make a little trip out of town with the family. So now we're back to the normal work week and selling back in, and man, it has been crazy. It's been kind of a COVID week. So it's
Absolutely.
been very interesting, man. A lot of stuff going on, but we're blessed, so we ain't worried, we ain't concerned. Um,
Yes, I too have fought the COVID bug as well. So we're
yeah,
we're all too familiar with that. What about you, brother Taylor?
Well, I'm just glad that we started the week off again, kind of the way we needed to. Yesterday was kind of special for our church in that officially we celebrated 40 years, actually yesterday, from the first Sunday that Open Door Baptist Church got started. And so I had the opportunity to be able to preach yesterday morning and right after Sunday school, delivering a lesson for Sunday school. And then last night, our founding pastor, that's now our assistant pastor, he brought a beautiful, beautiful message about I love my church. And it was awesome. Just the spirit last night. I think everybody kind of recognizing the goodness of God the last 40 years. And so yesterday was an awesome day, and it just kind of set the week for me. And it's been a good day today. Monday's my off day, so had the chance
Uh,
to do a few honeydews and just sort of kind of ease into the week.
hey,
no,
ain't
like
nothing like having a Monday off to start the week off, right?
Yes,
Right.
sir.
All right, well,
absolutely.
good. Well, good. Well, fellas, we're gonna get right into it. But before, because man, we got some good material, and I know that the listeners can't wait to hear what you guys got to say, and everything you guys have to offer. But before we get started, I'm gonna make sure if you're a listener on any device you're on right now or any platform, please make sure you tap in. If you're following our live stream right now, please give us a like, leave a comment, share it, whatever you got to do. And if you can't catch the live stream and you're catching this on the post stream or any other media platform, please make sure you hammer that like and subscribe. Share this with your family and friends and loved ones. Stay blessed. Now let's progress. Episode one, gentlemen. Episode one.
Wow.
It's the time of that season, right? It's right around the corner. Christmas chaos. That time of the year again. It's right around the corner. And what a better time to reflect on the true meaning of Christmas. But is your Christmas merry or scary? Are you unwrapping yourself in a joyful Christmas? Or are you wrapping yourself in a jeopardized circumstance? Is it full of holly and jolly or full of folly? What's your reason for the season?
Mm.
Hey man, either one of you guys, go ahead and tackle this. Let's jump in. What's your reason for the season?
My reason, I'll jump right in here, is obviously our Lord and Savior, Jesus the Christ. There, so uh, you know, I grew up in the culture like everyone else. It's kind of hard to overcome and differentiate between the two because, again, scripturally we should have one version of it, but then again, growing up in the culture, it's kind of hard not to partake in it, and all the vices and everything that we have going on.
Mhm.
So um, I'm trying to come back home, so to speak, and how I celebrate this season, how I view it. I do love, though, the fact that, this is a time where we see more people stopping into churches and opening their hearts and minds up to the Spirit of God. So I love that aspect of it.
Right.
You know, so that's kind of what it means to me. It's a great opportunity, and I'm still trying to equate, if we are looking at this as a celebration of the one who changed it all, man, what should that look like? You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a Jehovah Witness, but I am convicted over the thought that, we do these grand birthday bashes, right, for ourselves and celebration. And it's overwhelming when I think about that. And I said, wow, so if I was celebrating the one who changed it all, what would that look like? It's just overwhelming. So I kind of have mixed emotions about it. I understand, again, the culture, and that's what we do. But at the same time, it's like, wow, like um, it's crazy that we again find ways to always put emphasis on ourselves. Um, when again, if I were to compare that, it's like I don't know, like Sweet 16, retro, UMTV raps, whatever it is, buying kids Lambos and all this. I mean, what could I do that would be worthy of Jesus being born on that day? Again, the gift that keeps on giving. So that's my thought process on it. That's what I'm trying to move to here. It ain't easy, but it is the right way, in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Okay. But no, I like that take, man. Brother Taylor, what do you think? What's your take?
Well, I'm thankful. Most will see in my bio kind of how I grew up, and there's a lot of balance that the Lord has provided me in my perspective anyway. One of the ways that I was kind of raised in a balanced way is that my dad is so-called white Caucasian, mom is black, and then I was raised in a heavily Hispanic area, 60%. Um, and so that provides a lot of balance in ways that you see things, and not only sort of the surroundings providing that balance, but the other lovely thing is that my mom and dad really provided a lot of balance concerning even so-called holidays, holy
Right.
days. And one of the ways that they provided balance for us is that, to me, we never went overboard. If there's a way to go overboard during Christmas, in a lot of the commercialism that we see,
Yeah.
lights and presents and all the fun and falderall that tends to happen. We really didn't do an overabundance of that. It
Right.
was sort of more balanced. We were in church and we were spending time together. Of course, a lot of families spend time together. Did some caroling. Went and visited some of the elderly, maybe in our church or that used to be in our church who could no longer come. And so it was just kind of a really balanced perspective. And I like the way See the Three said it. We're focused a lot on what am I going to get or even what am I going to give. But if the birthday person is Jesus Christ, which I don't know how you can call it Christmas, and people have obviously tried to take that out, call it Xmas. But if you're going to call it Christmas, and you can put all the X's you want, people know what this is. And if you're going to call it that, well, we ought to be bringing gifts like the wise men did to Jesus. And I know they didn't bring it at his birth, but just a couple of years later, they came bearing gifts for the Christ child. So I just think there needs to be a balanced perspective about it, whether you're a believer or you're an unbeliever. Maybe it's not all about the gifts and the parties and all the lights and all those things, but maybe it's a little bit more balanced about giving back to him, our creator, who's done so much for us, and then giving to others even during this time of year, and not just gifts as in my child wants this or that, but going out and trying to maybe help somebody that's not as fortunate or maybe struggles during this time of year, trying to reach out in those kinds of ways.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I really didn't hear that perspective actually until I got to college. I came from a really humble home with a single mom, and I mean, we had gifts. I mean, it was to be expected. In part and part, you had a little bit of the teaching that today was about Jesus, but at the end of the day, as a kid, you were expecting gifts. You know, and so hearing what you gentlemen say, like I got to college and my roommate, one of my very first roommates said like all they did for Christmas was give each other fruit baskets and food, and they would go out and serve people. And I thought that was just like, what? I thought it was crazy ironic. And I was a grown man hearing that for the first time. But, I do remember my uncle saying that, like, that's what they did. They didn't, I mean, they exchanged gifts and really, low to moderate, humble type of gifts that weren't breaking the bank, and weren't really causing people financial hardships like in the day and time we're in now, where we see, it's affecting people far beyond, just their own pocketbooks and within their family, and people are, losing their jobs and
Sure.
people losing their minds. And, you know, Jesus is far from the thought of Christmas at that point. They're just keeping up. So is this more of a culture thing? Is this a westernized approach to it? Because I mean, I know there are stats that show like we're not the only nation that participates in Christmas this heavily. Like Canada is one of the highest spenders of Christmas time. Even Mexico regarding food alone. People spend hundreds of dollars on food just for Christmas. So is it a culture, or is it just is it just the way we're going? What do you guys shed on that?
I think it's culture, and I think that big business has taken full advantage of it. And hey, we live in a capitalist country, so I don't necessarily blame them for that. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's certainly a cultural thing, um, and yeah, it's just very hard again because it's been ingrained in so many folks, especially here in America for the most part. So we're a melting pot, and we do have people coming from other countries, but we tend to look at them like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is Christmas. Like, this is and I'm saying for those who come here that have a more modest celebration of the holiday, if they celebrate it at all. And don't believe in all of the traditions in the way that we handle it. So I usually look for things, man. If we're aware and we look at things scripturally, we know that there's no contradiction. So it's just interesting that even as believers, we find ourselves um, not being good stewards. And this time that we're supposed to be celebrating Christmas, but we literally become horrible stewards of what God has given us financially during these months,
Right.
which doesn't work out for us very much at all. So,
Right. Interesting. Well, let me do this because I'm gonna come to you next, Tim. But what I found really interesting article from Capital Counselor states excuse me, the top 10 Christmas spending statistics for 2022. And check this out. So parents plan to spend on an average of 276 to $350 per child when it comes to Christmas gifts. That was one of the results taken in the late 2021. That's expected to grow this year. 10% of Europeans go into debt due to Christmas shopping. 1 in 10 people return their gifts to the store. 41% of Americans are willing to take on debt due to gift shopping. Um, 15.2 billion is the estimated total of unwanted presents. I'm sorry, excuse me. America is expected to spend almost 6.1 billion on Christmas trees alone. In 2021, 21% of Americans plan to spend less money on holiday gifts, while Americans are going to spend an average of $886 on Christmas gifts. Women spend 20 hours on average shopping for Christmas presents alone. 56% of US consumers want to receive a gift card as a present. What do you guys think about that? Tim, I'll let you take the first strike. How do those stats, do they alarm you? Is it like, that's that's normal, or what? What do you think?
Well, in my opinion, this is where the Christmas chaos really comes into view. I think, we were talking about this off air here recently, how that, Kevin, you were in a store here recently, just in the last week, I think you said, and basically almost got run over,
Right.
for lack of better words, because now people are in go mode.
Go mode.
It's day after Thanksgiving, it's Black Friday, and it's on. And what we're thinking about is going out and shopping and buying, and I'm not saying at all that there's anything wrong in and of itself with those things. I'm for one very grateful that we live in such a prosperous country.
Right.
We have a lot of issues. Our national debt is off the charts. We know that to be the case. And so is it any wonder that personal households are experiencing so much debt as well? It's part of our culture. And the chaos part, to me, comes into place. Chaos means unpredictability or confusion. And I always think about that passage in Corinthians where the Bible says that God is not the author of confusion. And so if we're coming into this Christmas season with this mindset of utter chaos and confusion and unpredictability, and I think a gauge for that would be up to Christmas and right after Christmas. Are we more peaceful or less peaceful in our soul? And if we're less, that speaks to the chaos. And what Christ came to do was bring peace and goodwill on earth toward all men. So we ought to have more peace in our soul leading up to this day and out of it than less, in my opinion. And I do believe that we've got a problem in our culture. It is one of the reasons to me why this is such a big, and so many of them are, a big drinking holiday, because people are so bombarded and so overwhelmed. It seems to me they're looking for a way to sort of check out. And so that's just kind of my viewpoint on it from a cultural perspective, a societal perspective. And I'd be interested to hear, what you guys think. Maybe what our listeners would think as well, based on comments and so on.
Yeah, and if we have listeners that are listening right now, please feel free to chime in, leave comments about your takes on Christmas and around the holiday time. But I really wanted to take it to C to 3. We hear a lot within holidays and celebrations. Is this more of a culture thing, or is this more culture driven? Whether that's in your own personal culture group or culturally as a nation. But do you see it becoming more? Do you see it progressing, or seeing that machine move culturally, or are we just wrapped up in trends? Because it gets kind of weird. I think there's a thin line there between culture and trend, and a lot of people start following trends when it comes to what my child should have. If one kid has something, we got to have that, and then this is what you got to have for Christmas. I mean, I mean, we had parents who said, they didn't have TVs in every room. If they barely had one TV in the house, and now every kid just about has a TV in their room. So C to 3, do you see it being more culturally driven, or is it trend driven as far as with holidays and all this madness and this chaos?
Again, I think it's a little bit of both. I just, again, we're in a capitalist country here, and I don't blame them for this specifically, because it's for every holiday that we celebrate in this country. We really are trying to, if you look at it, we're going before we even got to Halloween, we're in Thanksgiving. Before we get to Thanksgiving, Christmas stuff is already on the shelves. We're getting, it's like a continuous churning to get the dollars out. And so I think it's largely a part of that. And now I think probably the bad part about it, um, I often will say, again, Jesus. We can talk about whether he was a carpenter or or whatever, stonemason, whatever you want to call him. But I think of him again as the greatest teacher to ever walk the earth. Uh, at the same time, I think of the enemy as a marketing genius in terms of obviously we know iniquity was found in him, and he's done a great job of helping people find that in themselves. And so, just as we started in the garden with a perfect scenario, a kingdom scenario where we had everything that we needed, he was still able to convince us there was more that we needed. And so now what concerns me a lot of times is, and again, I want everybody to know here, I'm not bah humbug about Christmas or any of that. I understand, like literally, uh, it is what it is. But kind of like with drinking, I would just say celebrate it responsibly in a spiritual manner. But then also, I just think that, and taking my kids out to stores, kind of watching them and looking out for things to get them for Christmas. What's interesting is that there's really nothing out there. Like they're not even making, when we were kids, they were coming out with new stuff all the time. And we were like, oh man, like this is the new, da, 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 da. And now when we look at the sales papers for things that they're selling kids now, uh, it's like the same old recycled stuff. They're not even coming out with new stuff, but it's still something that they are promoting within us that it's okay. We need that. We want that, and we got to have that,
Right.
And so that's the part that's really dangerous for me and something that we have to look out for. But again, Christmas, I love getting out with my wife, going to the malls, when everything is all decked out and the lights are out and everything, going in there and seeing the elaborate setups that they have inside. Just again, the feel of it, the aura of it, just people being in better moods and kind of one of the few times out of the year it seems like for the most part the majority of people are on the same page as far as goodwill. I was talking to a guy as I was passing through Tulsa here a week ago, and he was leaning out of the drive-through window, and I said, "Man, how you doing, man?" He said, "Oh, man, I cannot complain. I must say I love this time of the season because people are so much nicer to me in this drive-through when they're coming through." And they were blasting, Christmas music and everything, and they were really enjoying themselves while they work, which is very important. Everybody out there, enjoy yourself while you work. But yeah, I just think that again, ultimately, they started to churn this thing in us, and they've just done everything they've done to continue to encourage it
Right.
year by year. And
Who
unfortunately,
is they?
you know,
Who is they? See the three.
Yeah. Who is they? Explain to people who they is.
I mean, ultimately, it
You
goes back.
mentioned the enemy earlier.
It goes to the enemy.
Okay.
It always goes to the enemy because again, that's his game plan. And a lot of people don't believe in spiritual warfare, but it is definitely out there. And there's always this ploy, this attempt to show the Most High that we're not worth it, we're not worthy. He's been trying to push that. The accuser of the brethren has been trying to push that since day one. Good for us though; he's a defeated foe, so he's done. So he's screaming on the outside, not on the inside. But yeah, I mean, money, there's nothing wrong with money, um, but there's a spirit behind it that can make people do real nefarious things behind it. And that spirit behind that is what we have to be concerned with. And we have to be concerned with it corrupting our kids to where, again, getting so far away from the true meaning behind Christmas, they're not happy. They have no joy or no peace if they don't have this latest thing here, even again, if it is recycled, you know. Um, that's my thoughts on it.
Okay. Tim, you want to take a stab? Culture or trending? I know you. You spoke on a little bit, but Anything else you want to add to it?
No, culture. To me, it's all culture. There are always going to be trends. What's more popular this year, this decade, whatever it may be. But to me, human culture, human nature produces a human culture that is really less than. In other words, we're shooting for a much lower mark than what we were ever meant for. And so, as was mentioned earlier, God meant for Adam and Eve to have a beautiful relationship with Him, to be fulfilled with everything that He had given them and had done for them. And very, very quickly, it spun out to God being the enemy and Him trying to withhold something from us as human beings, and us wanting more, if it was even possible. Obviously, we know it wasn't, but wanting more than what God had actually provided for us in the first place. So, to me, from the very first moments of our history, this culture began, and it's just continued, and it's not going to really end until Jesus comes back and ultimately sets up His rule and reign. And this human nature, this sinful nature that we have, is defeated once and for all.
I like it. So
Yeah, I
I
think.
can't I can't wait to the
Okay.
day. Oh, go ahead, C3. Go ahead. What'd you
Uh,
have?
no, I was going to say that I completely agree with that, and I think that hopefully the folks out there are listening. I know that people take this conversation very, very personal, and let me tell you something. We think that when we drop scripture or we talk about the Bible or Jesus, that we are only offending non-believers. But believers are offended because, again, like I said, they grew up in this culture. So this is their way. So forcing them to look at this the right way is still a little tough to swallow. And it's the same thing that we have, whether it's Halloween, whatever it is, these are things, again, that we grew up doing. And because of that, we've introduced our children into it. And again, that's all culture. But I will say, too, when we're talking about um, different manifestations of that spirit that is causing these problems. I'll never forget. I was probably, man, I don't know, maybe 14 years old, and my aunt was taking us to get something to eat. Me and my cousin, and I mean, it was like right before Christmas, and a guy had another guy pinned down, just pounding him out on the pavement and trying to get into his pockets, and so again, uh, where essentially uh, that whole goodwill and everything, I've seen that just turned upside down on his head. And at that point, uh, that's definitely not the reason for the season.
Right.
It doesn't matter what your intent is. Well, I'm going to do this because I need to buy gifts for my family or do what, that's definitely not the reason for the season. That's a whole nother spirit in action
Right.
right there.
Yeah,
Well,
and that's
let,
where a
and let
lot of
me
my
interject here,
go ahead, go ahead.
Kevin, because I thought on this over the last week, and when I heard what you just said, see the three, about that situation that you watched, I think about some of those lyrics for what I would call real Christmas music. And real Christmas music actually focuses on Christ. Um, and the lyric that came to my mind specifically when you mentioned that situation is, "For hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men." And where are those lyrics come from? Maybe people are not aware of a really a well-known traditional Christmas song called "I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day." And it's been set to some trendier music now here more recently. But Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote that song, and it was right there during the Civil War era here in our country, a time of great division and a time of enslavement, and something had to give. And if I'm not mistaken, we lost 600,000 men during that time. And Longfellow looked around and basically said, I hear the bells, but where's this peace on earth, goodwill to men? And so, we see those kinds of things. We see that old Christmas song, Sweet Little Jesus Boy, they made you be born in the manger. And it's interesting. I read a little bit more about the history of that song. I would have figured it would have been produced during the Civil War era as well. It was produced as what would be called a Black Negro spiritual. And what's interesting about that is actually produced in the early 1900s. And the guy that wrote it, he was not even a black guy. He's a white guy. But he grew up around black people and sort of had his mind focused on that slavery era. And he ultimately wrote that song. And when you juxtapose or compare those two songs versus one that I heard in Lowe's even today called The Christmas Shakeup, and that was done by a group called Train. And I couldn't remember ever hearing that, so I went and looked at what this song is all about. It's got a real catchy tune about it and all of that, but really what it highlighted was Santa and romantic relationship. That's really what The Christmas Shakeup is all about. And is it any wonder that we're so far off the beaten path? I say we, I just think our society in general, that we're so far off the beaten path when we know more about Santa and Fa La 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 and Rudolph. When we know more about these types of things than we know about real Christmas songs and real Christmas themes. Yeah. And I think that's the reason why this spirit that you're speaking about, see the three, is produced in people where they're more apt to fight. Day after Christmas, I've worked it in the previous life. That can be some of the greatest fights you'll see all year long. Black Friday, early morning, people standing in line to go get the newest thing. And why is that? Well, we've got a broken culture, in my opinion, and we've got to get back to traditional, eternal themes when it comes to Christmas, and maybe some of this chaos will fade away.
Yeah. Well, see, that's what I want to kind of get at, like a solution to the problem, because we ultimately know, Christ is the ultimate solution for everything.
Yep.
But when we're dealing with a society that's so self-centered and surface level driven, we have the challenges ahead of us. What I was going to speak to was, coming from a family of entrepreneurs, my big brother, to this day has a store, that he owns and operates, and most of the low income areas of Oklahoma City, and I'd worked with him a little bit after college, and got to see, not just that class of people, but a majority of people from all walks of life come in the store, and like they tout they tout about, and they almost like they walk the red carpet on about how much money they've spent, on Christmas, and what they were able to buy their baby, almost like a competition in some regard, like however much money I spent, this is how much I love my child, and that's just one lane. And then I seen, I come from a giving family. Of course, my brother's always given, and I thought that was always awesome, because I believe he got that from my mom, just ability to, people don't have it, man. Like, look, people are struggling around this time, it's given. And so you see that, but crime, I mean, I don't know how many times my brother's store was broken into. People are desperate, for gifts.
Yes.
For gifts, to smash and do hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of damage to, someone that's actually giving in the community just for gifts, and it really made me look at it like, this is a dangerous time of the year, and even now in one of his more recent locations, he's had to fortify it, a lot more than he did his initial location, because He's like, it's worse. He's like, it's so bad now. I have to change my hours. Like, there are actual businesses now that are changing that. They're closing probably right before the time we launched the live cast because they're like, hey man, I'm not out here after night. I'm gonna get mugged. I'm gonna get robbed. Somebody's waiting for me to walk to my car. And it is. I mean, I honestly thought I was, entering a fortress slash penitentiary when I went to the store last holiday season. I mean, it's got the net fencing around the window. It's got and he loves this environment. I mean, you ask him this day, he loves it because he loves people the way he does. But man, you got to get checked in by two people. And then when you come in, you like, hey man, you gotta, make sure, everything other than getting patted down before you come in. But the safety precaution you have to take because he's like, man, I had two attempts on people trying to rob me within a month, within that month, because people are that desperate, for gifts, So, you know, one of the things I did, I wanted to share with you guys were the top gift for consumers to give. So I wanted to kind of have a little competition and see who could get close.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes,
Before we jump into that, Matt, can I say something?
sure, absolutely.
I just want to say that we're getting back to the whole cultural thing, and you asked the great question, and I hope that with this platform we can kind of help people out in that area, which is what can we do to combat that? We say something in the Black community, you know. Reach one, teach one, reach one. We have all these sayings. It takes a village. I think we have to have that approach instead of for worldly things and for things that we can accomplish in the world, but even spiritually and the building up of our communities. And that starts with, and again, this is scriptural. I mean, it starts with the child and how we rear them up, what we teach them, what we show them. Um, we have all these great conversations that I love as a community, and we have these different activists and they talk about all this stuff, and you know but really as a people in general, as human beings in general, because obviously race is just a man-made construct. When
Right.
God created us, he created man and woman. He didn't, not black woman, not white woman. He just created human beings.
That's right.
We created that to declassify people so that we can justify treating them differently. But in terms of when we're talking about how we can combat that, it starts in the womb, and it starts when that child is there and making plans for that child and making sure that we're putting things uh, in place, so that when that child comes out, they can be successful. They can not only survive. We do too much preaching about surviving, and I don't want to get off. I know I'm kind of getting off the whole Christmas thing here, but we need to focus more on them being in a position to thrive, not to survive, to thrive.
Agreed.
And that starts with spiritually and holding them accountable in that way. And then at that time, they have a kingdom mindset where they can appreciate what they have. Um, and they're not so easily drawn into these other things. Um, so I think that's the big part of it, is just us taking the time to educate our children, our nieces and nephews. Again, it takes a village. So even maybe the neighbors' kids, if we have the opportunity, just random kids, don't just look so quick to blast them. If we see that they are heading a wrong way, take the time, have the patience, and try to educate them. And maybe we can make a difference in their lives. They can make a difference in some other kids' lives, um, and then we can kind of change the environment a bit. We're not going to have heaven on earth. I mean, that's not happening in this time.
Right.
Scripturally, we know that. We
Right.
pray for it. We want it to be the best that we can possibly make it, and we're called to keep fighting and not to give up, to finish the race. But at the same time, yeah, I think it starts with us trying to change that culture from the inside out. Um,
So do you think at times when you say starting it from you're pretty much saying a granular level at the child level, when you have children who you have parents or modest parents who are raising their children to be a lot more appreciative and humble of these things. But when they get put in other uncontrollable environments like public schools, they're being chastised or ridiculed for not having much, and these kids go through all this stuff because it's like, oh, look at you, and people don't have as much as others to really like for Christmas. I remember seeing kids get teased, man, and like, you wore that on Monday, and it was Wednesday, and I'm like, come on, man, and like you said, yeah, I know it's our responsibility, to teach all, not just the ones with or without, it's all, but like, you know, get to a point where I think that's where the trend part kicks in, because you see kids that know their situations and they get out here and they know they're less fortunate and they don't have the option. And and I know to a degree, I feel like I'm a little close to this because I'm involved in our community with a lot of the youth that we have a football program that's led by our church ministry. And man, I see a lot of these kids, man, they are facing pressure, not just from their not just from their parents, and not just from their friends, but peers, man, that they're rubbing elbows with every day, and it's putting a high level of stress on them. And I think the way these kids are able to come home and relate this to these parents is putting the parents in the same situation too. Now, rightfully so, I know a parent is supposed to be a parent and be like, hey, listen, you know, we can't afford that or we can't do that. But you have some parents that are sitting there making life decisions at all seven, thinking, man, I gotta, I want to help my child out. I don't want to be, teased, and I gotta give them the best kicks, and and spend a lot of money on that. And some are able to really rationalize, and you saw some kids that really had some issues. But I'm not saying that's for all. But what can you speak on when you have certain situations like that?
Well, so this brings up to me an interesting point. Are parents in that situation that are getting back from their kids this persecution that they're receiving at their school or out in the community? Are they simply, or I don't want to say they, are we simply getting a lot of what we've given? And what I mean by that is this. If I tell my children, I've got two daughters, they're young. If I tell them that Christmas is about Santa and this big fat man comes down the chimney and brings presents, which is a total fabrication. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm bursting your bubble tonight. I don't want to do that,
You
obviously,
offended a
but
lot of people just now.
well, no doubt, no doubt. Get your kids off the live cast. But I mean, if we're giving them this fantasy,
Right.
and so the expectation is gifts just appear out of nowhere,
Mm.
instead of there are some biblical principles. For instance, it takes work to produce, and you reap what you sow. If you
Yeah.
sow a little, you reap a little. If you sow a lot, you reap a lot. And so sometimes I think we're trying to bring down those that maybe are living in a different zip code, and well, look at them and how'd they get all that and all of that. I think a lot of times it's just simply due to the fact they worked and work hard. And maybe we've given an expectation to our children because we're feeding them these fantasies that things just appear out of nowhere, instead of kids understanding, hey, this takes hard work. And not only that, you can work for the here and now, for the pair of skates or the video game or the new shoes or whatever it may be, or you can work for the future, to have a house that's paid for, cars that are paid for, education that's paid for. And so I'm sacrificing the temporary now, and I'm going to wear last year's clothes, last year's shoes. I'm gonna rely on last year's video game, which is still pretty good, so that I can put some money away for the future and be prepared to not have so much stress on me to constantly have to try to live up to the Joneses. I mean, has Santa really hurt us in that way? My opinion is absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of kids
What's your
that would.
take, bro?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of kids that would trade their parents in for Santa Claus,
They would.
and they don't even know the man, but just the idea of him. But I will say this too. Again, I understand, yeah, kids, there's no way of them getting around falling into those situations. But that's why it's very important that, again, from the womb, we start to really set the stage for them. And then when they have these scenarios, we can revert back to that interaction between God and Adam. And it's more of a, who told you that?
Mm,
I mean, who have you been listening to, my son? Because I didn't tell you that.
mm-hmm.
you know so if we're filling them with good things, and we're building them up in that manner, then it's going to be a lot harder for someone to chip away at that, and put them down to the point to where they'll just take it and say, oh, this person says I'm awful and this and that. Well, who told you awful? Because I didn't tell you that.
That's great.
I didn't rear you as awful. I've always told you were a blessing. So again, who have you been listening to, is a great question in that scenario.
Yeah. Well, influence is tough, and you know, being a father of children that are a little older now, I hear some of the stuff they hear, and as a young impressionable mind, they're heavily influenced, and thank the Lord, that they're able to rationalize for the most part and go, you know what, like my parents have been good to me, like even my daughter, she was like, I don't need much this year. You guys have been taking care of me. You've been, taking care of me, regarding, school and football and everything else. Even though we're gonna, we're gonna take care of her, but just to know that she was able to acknowledge that and had that discussion with us, makes it like, we don't mind. But I do. I see some children that really like struggle around this time, and the parents too. And it breaks my heart because you know they have to send their children to those schools. They can't afford to send them to a private school or a school where or homeschool them where they can kind of control that to a degree and reinforce it maybe more often than they're hearing the influence, and the kid comes down home and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" And they're like, "Oh, but and I'm not saying just every situation, but I just think it's it's one interesting circumstance, and I know around this Christmas time, it really wears on both the adult and the children. So,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, I mean, I
go ahead.
well, I was just going to say that again, I'm okay with it in general, but I did make it a point here over the last couple of years here. Actually, I've got a couple small ones, and to let them know that you know this is kind of something we play along with, but there is no real Santa Claus. Like mommy and daddy are buying your gifts because we love you, but
Exactly.
there is no, and so it's okay. We want to play along with that. But there's no tooth fairies or there's no
Okay,
bunny
okay. So
lady.
let me ask you this:
Or,
what do you say, or what do you advise parents? Because we have some parents that, even Christian parents, that are like, don't tell their children that Santa Claus doesn't exist right now. They're still so young. And I know we
yeah,
probably got some listeners going, yeah, and then we got mainly most of the guys are probably like, man, tell them kids like
I
we
know.
bought that stuff, like what do you say for couples around this time who are dealing with Christmas? Because that's another whole situation you have where you know, it's like they're you may have two worlds colliding at this time of the season.
Well, I would say this. What are we highlighting the most? The Bible says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." So see the three mentioned, letting them know, this Santa Claus thing, it's really a myth. We play along with it. But your parents are the ones that are getting these things for you and making these things happen. But I think we've got to even go a step further than that. Because without the Lord, I wouldn't even have the breath and the strength and the health to go work to provide the necessities, let alone things my kids desire above and beyond that.
Absolutely.
So to me, it's got to always go first and foremost, and it's always got to go back to our Creator and what He's provided for us so that all these gifts could even exist. I mean, the fact that we're using this technology tonight and being on a computer, I mean, what an amazing thing that God has given us. For what purpose? You know, to be able to ultimately glorify and honor Him before each other. And again, as C3 said, it starts with our children. It starts with those that we have the most influence in their lives at the earliest of ages and the most consistently. And I just think it's got to go back to the source. It's got to go back to the originator. And if we're not telling our kids the truth first and foremost, what are we telling them? The opposite of the truth is a lie.
Absolutely.
Speaking
I
of
agree with that
talking
110%.
speaking about computer, I actually got this computer for Christmas. So no, but
Is that one of the ones? Is
You
that
just
one of the
say,
gifts? You're about to talk about that.
just say 3 Hail Marys, you'll be okay. 3 Hail Marys and he's fine, right, Tim?
so what do you guys think about uh, office gift givings at work? That's taking on a world of its own. Trend or culture?
I'm a Grinch. So, you know, less is more with me. I don't know, at least from that perspective. Like, wait a minute, we're working together. And I understand you put limits on it and all that. So I think that's all well and good.
Mm-hmm.
But we're working together.
That's always where it starts. Is start small and then it becomes, hey man.
It does. And I mean, like, we're working together to, like, we're at this job because we've got needs and they need to be met. But now all of a sudden, we're going to bring presents back to, don't talk to me about it. I'm the Grinch.
Hey, look. Some people be
Well,
like, hey, I got this job because I got to get stuff for Christmas. So, and then I got to come and buy you something. So, I've had the pleasure in working some really, really nice companies in the greater state of Oklahoma for a long time in the IT industry. And C3, you may be able to shed a little bit more light, Brother Taylor, you as well. It just in a corporate environment, there's so much going on when you see, so much agenda here, agenda there, agenda here, agenda there, and then you've got to collaborate and do things. And then when the holidays come, it's like, hey, let's encourage participation, and you got that. But what I've noticed at the last 3 companies I worked at, not saying necessarily the one I'm at now, but man, it was almost like a twisting of the arm. I mean, I think I shared with you guys off camera one time the ugly sweater challenge, and I got chastised for not wearing an ugly sweater. And I'm like, hey, listen, like, back up. I'm wearing a sweater today. I'm not wearing the ugly sweater. But a young lady approached me and was like, "Where's your sweater? You're not even in the spirit." I'm like, "Yes, I am. Like, I'm thankful for the Lord. I'm thankful for waking up today. I'm thankful for Christ for giving me the opportunity to be here so I can spend this week before Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about an ugly sweater, but." I see people, and I know, like you said, it's very minimum on the gifts, but they've got all these, and I don't try to be that guy, but they got all these these methods in place, and everybody's exchanging gifts and Secret Santa and all that. And I like that stuff with my family, but I personally want to do it at work, and yeah, I guess so. But it's just like I see it for what it can be, what it can become, what it can manifest to. So C3, what's your take on it? Am I being a little extreme, or do you see it that way as well?
I don't have any problem with that. Most of the time I try to look at these scenarios from the heart of it. What's the intent? What's the heart of it? When we're talking about adults in the workplace, which all the ones that I've ever participated in, they had a limit, which was pretty low, so it was pretty fair for everyone. I'm one of those type of people, though. I try not to look at that because, in that way, I want to bless somebody. So if I see something that I think somebody will like, I'll always kind of break that rule just a little bit. But at the same time, we got adults who are not doing this under the guise that there's some, fake person or what have you making this happen. We know that it's coming from our coworker, whether it's Dirty Santa or whatever it may be. I'm kind of okay with that. I look at that almost kind of just another form of team building as well. But yeah, I mean, amongst adults, because we understand, what it is, I don't so much have a problem with it.
All right, so 2-1. Brother Taylor and I against you on that one. we just need to relax and just spend the $20, right?
Hey, there are people that I've worked with that just would not. And again, for some of the reasons that you said, they were like, I'm focused on getting my kids gifts or my wife gifts. I don't have time, or my husband gifts. I don't really have any extra money. I got bills to pay. They didn't stop, my light bill because it's December. They didn't stop my water bill. Gas ain't free through the month of December. So, hey,
Around the people I've been around.
Yeah, I completely get that. And, do what works for you. If you can't partake in that, then do not put yourself under any type of duress during the season.
Listeners, did you hear
That's for
that?
sure.
Cedar 3 just gave you a gem. So, I always thought that, I was maybe a little gripey when it came to that, but I noticed a lot more people in the industry feel that way. I even had one guy tell me like it's an invasion of my privacy. I don't want to do this. Like, invasion of privacy. What are you talking about, man? It's like, I don't know. I don't want to spend any more money on gifts this season. I don't know my situation, and I'm just like, oh, okay, well. So, I do think like, again, that's when it comes back to all that. I feel like, without people saying it again, and again, not for every situation, but that's that influence and that pressure that people are feeling, like, oh, I just bought all of this. Now I gotta go buy this. And it's like, dude, it's $20, or $10 worth of something. Like, I don't care, like, and people are pinching pennies, and I get it, but I felt that was interesting one to bring up.
And I'll play a little devil's advocate on that just one time here. But, I do not want to be confused because, again, it can be for different reasoning. Now, there are some people out there that they don't want to do it because they cheap or because they idolize money, and so that's not, again, two different purposes, two different reasons behind it. But there are a lot of people that for that reason, and that part I don't really get.
What do they say? They're stingy. Is that what I heard somebody say one time?
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden, I'm raising my kids right. We're doing Kwanzaa. This is that. It's like, well, what is Kwanzaa got to do? It's like you do anything to save a buck, won't you? It's not the principle of why why we shouldn't do it necessarily. It's just because you want to save money, you don't want to spend it, and this is your way out. Kind of like we were talking about the other day. The whole discussion about the tithes. The people who never like to pay tithes, to hear somebody say that you shouldn't pay tithes or don't have to biblically, they're just like, yes,
they're like, boom,
yes,
let's go.
That check.
Take that off the Excel spreadsheet now.
Oh man, you're speaking to the choir in that instance. And so yeah, sometimes I hear a lot of people and I look at them, I'm just like, hey, you're just being cheap, man. It's okay. Buy your wife a gift.
Right.
But I understand there's people out there that we don't know everybody's situation. So no company, no employees, no one should make anybody feel a certain kind of way because, a lot of them are cheap, but there's a lot of them, again, we don't know their internal situation at home. And they may be struggling to eat. You see them coming to work every day and you're like, we have this problem sometimes. We count people's money. We're like, well, he coming in the building, so we know he getting a check just like us. Yeah, but you don't know where his money's being diverted to,
Yeah.
and for what reasons, So unless we're just close and personal with that person, we don't know what's going on. They may be taking care of a loved one. They may be just in all kinds of debt. Maybe not even to their own doing, but because they're trying to help. And so we have to respect that and understand, that for some people, for those reasons, they're not going to be able to
Well,
participate.
and see, that makes even more sense why that guy told you. So he was felt like it was an invasion of privacy. Maybe he felt like, he was being exposed, or, if he couldn't participate in the dirty Santa, then it was showing to him, to his peers, or, revealing to his peers that he didn't have money. And I mean, I got that from him without him saying, but I think, like there is a, like I said, I think it should be more or less like, if you want to participate, good. But and I think that's how it initially starts. But I think some people will end up like, hey, you're the part of our department, you know, get down or get down, and I don't think it should be like that. But it's Christmas time, man, and like I know people are trying to take care, but you know, so. But let me ask you guys this real quick. I know, we're close to closing, and we're having a really good time with some really fruitful discussion here. You both have young children, and I as well. But just to throw this one out there, I ask each of you, and feel free to just think about this. What's the most or the oddest gift one of your children has asked you for at any
I don't
time,
know. I've never had an odd request that I
or
can
anything
think of.
surprising? I mean, have any of the girls that said, "Dad, I wanna," you like, where did you get that from? No,
No, I mean not thus far. I mean it's coming. I fully expect it.
right?
But to this point, they're in that sweet section of life, 6 and 8. They love dad and mom. They're very easygoing, and part of that is an environment that's been created for them.
Mm,
But I can be honest and say they just don't really ask for a lot, and we have had the opportunity to be able to give them a lot more, um, for better or for worse, sometimes, than what either of us really grew up with. And so I don't think they really want for a lot, and I'm glad for that. And so they don't ask for a lot.
C3. What about you?
I would say trip to Puerto Rico.
Trip to Puerto
Uh,
Rico.
oh man, this is a whole nother conversation.
Wow.
There's a whole nother conversation in general uh, that we probably could have a good talk about the power of social media. Also,
Mm.
during the pandemic and everything, a lot of the shows, because they could not record anymore because people couldn't go on the sets out of fear of getting sick and things like that. We saw a lot of reruns during that time on a lot of TV shows, and so YouTube really took off as far as my kids, they watched Ryan when they were a little kid and stuff like that. If you guys are familiar with Ryan, Ryan is a little kid that his kids, they just buy him all these wonderful toys, and he plays with these toys all day and just shares his experiences and videos.
Yeah, he's got a
So
he's
much.
got an empire now,
Oh, he's
right?
got an empire now.
Oh yeah.
But you know, and so it went from that, which I didn't have a problem with Ryan. Ryan, I never saw anything weird or strange there. But now it's, yeah, my kids, they watch like I'm not trying to plug here or anything like that, but Ninja Kids, stuff like that, and these kids, uh, the I would say the whole thing about it is that you never see them going to school, you never see them, so they're traveling all the time, and so uh my kids are like, oh man, Ninja Kids, they live in Puerto Rico, can we move to Puerto Rico, can we do this, can we do that? And it's like, no, that's we're not doing that. So I would say that's probably the weirdest. All the other stuff is pretty much in line with the normal stuff, but that was a real weird request that I got. Trip
Mm.
to Puerto Rico.
Trip to Puerto Rico. I think that I think that tops them. I think I've heard a request for a dirt bike for one who couldn't even ride a four wheeler. Amazing. And then yeah, outside of makeup and clothes and stuff that I don't even understand. Yeah, that's the most for me. But a trip, yeah, that's awesome.
Oh
Now let
man.
me ask you guys this, if I may. Spouse requests. What's the most interesting gift your spouse has asked you for, or have hinted? Jump
Well,
in
my
there.
wife threw me off here recently.
Uh oh.
We're kind of simple in some ways, and we've always been that way in the decade plus we've been married. Um, but she's not a coffee lover. I am. I love coffee. She'll never drink it. I always drink it. We happen to be in an area here in our metro here recently, and they have a coffee shop called Summer Moon.
Mm.
And Summer Moon started in Austin. And so I saw it and I did a U-turn. I was like, I didn't know Summer Moon was in this area. And I don't buy expensive coffee very often because it's expensive. So anyway, we whipped around. I pulled in there, looked at the board a while, talked with the lady there, and finally got my drink. And it was delicious. And I handed it over to my wife. And for one time in her life, she thought it was delicious too. So 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 now my wife, who does not like coffee, she wants me to go get her a Summer Moon coffee. Tim, can we go
Oh
back? You go
wow.
get me a Summer Moon coffee. And so anyway, that's got to be the weirdest one for us, for a
Yeah.
wife that has never liked coffee at all. Actually
Wow.
saying here recently she wants a Summer Moon coffee.
Welcome to the club, Sister Taylor.
There you go. Finally turned her.
Well, see, and you can honestly say, because I know you, and as my brother, I know you. You probably told her, well, it's because it's from the great state. It's from Austin. It's from all. Yeah, I already knew. So I'm not. Oh man, there you go. No, C to three. What about you, bro?
Man,
Most
got that Longhorn
interesting
cup.
gift.
Got that Longhorn cup in there.
Uh,
Oh boy. Uh, you know what, man? Mm, nothing really that odd. I'm kind of blessed in that sense that she's not really caught up in a lot of that stuff as far as the stuff. So she normally keeps it pretty simple. She's kind of like well, not as bad as my mom, but I'm saying like like she baby, just give me some thick socks. My feet get cold. It's like that can't be just your Christmas gifts. Get you some thick socks. I mean, come on.
Right.
But she kind of just like basic stuff. So she's got her eye, I think, on some boots this year. But yeah, uh,
You
not
said boot.
cowboy boots, but like she likes wearing boots and things like that. So
Okay. So
nothing
all right,
special.
cool. But yeah, I say the same. I mean, so I try to, I always, try to do little here's and there's for my wife, and she's a very humble woman, come from humble beginnings, and I say I feel bad saying she's very low maintenance when it comes to stuff like that because she is, but she has exquisite taste with some things. But my wife, she'll love it. She enjoys, just maybe make going on a trip somewhere, or just going to see something beautiful, together, and then the thing that always makes her smile is we go get something to eat. So she's like, I don't need much, just feed me, and she, like to try to go out and see, visit new places, and expand our palettes a bit, and I think she really enjoys that a lot. So but she hasn't really had any weird requests. She's always wanted a hammock, and I got her a hammock, and she never used it. But other than that, that's probably the most interesting for me. Um, but real quick, fellas, I wanted to run this by. I know we were heavy in on the topic earlier, but I did want to talk about some of the top gift consumers that people are expected to give, and we can kind of tie this all back in as we get ready to close. But I'm going to throw out some categories, and I want you guys to take a guess in what Americans are buying the most of. Now we got a category of sporting goods and leisure items. We have jewelry, and I'll be more than happy to repeat these if you need. Sporting goods and leisure items, jewelry, home decor or furnishing, electronics, personal care or beauty items, books or other media, toys, gift cards, and clothing or accessories. Of those, what do you think is the top gift for consumers? Pastor Tim, I'll start with you.
I'd have to say I would think electronics or home decor, and I think those
Electronics.
kind of maybe go hand in hand because we came out of the pandemic and people were spending a lot of time at home. A lot of people are working now more so from home than ever before, probably. And so that's why I would say electronics or home decor.
So electronics, home decor. Okay. C to three. What do you think, bro?
Mm, I would have to also go with electronics. And As we grow more detached from each other, electronics are now our best friends. We want to go live in the metaverse. So, it's uh, so I would say that, but then also I would say probably beauty would probably be, care would be a second thing because we love
Hmm.
ourselves, right?
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I got some numbers for you guys. Um, Coming towards the bottom at about 17% are sporting goods and leisure items.
Hmm.
Uh, Coming in for a consumer percentage of 20% was jewelry. And this has been taken recently by the NRF for in November, the last month in November of 2022. So these numbers are kind of spot on right before the holidays. But yeah, home decor and furnishing came in at 21%. Electronics came in at 24% of consumers. And then you have personal care and beauty items right above that at 26%.
Wow.
Food and candy came in at 31%. Books and other media came in at 33. Toys at 37. Gift cards at 45. And guess what the number one was? Clothes and accessories at 55%. So surprising, alarming, nah.
Not
I mean,
surprised.
I mean, you guys picked electronics, so I mean, I expected that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess if I consider um, everybody, children obviously are a big one, then I'm not surprised by
Yeah,
that.
but yeah, awesome. With the inflation as well, they said it looks like it'll affect spending this year, but they said Americans are still going to drive that number up even through that. So, what does that let you know? Going into this and kind of wrapping this up, even though there's a barrier, it seems like there's something that would say, okay, well, hey, this year we can do something a little different with prices on everything being, doubled and tripled and whatnot. As a family, could they look and go like to the solution to the problem you mentioned earlier, C to three is, hey, like let's do something different this year. You know, Inflation is also like this thing where we can use it as like, hey, this is an encouragement this year. We're not going to do this, but it, from stats showing the way people are still spending right now, even before Christmas, we're going to kick that number up. I mean, we're going to drive it through some more. So, what do you guys have to say regarding that as we kind of round this out?
Well, I'll just say it like this. I think for there to be a proper culture change or shift, that hearts and minds have to be changed. And the heart is really the central focus of everything. And the heart then would produce a change in the mind. And I love what Philippians says, chapter 2, verse 5. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And really, that's honestly what Jesus Christ, who had it all. You know, we talk about living our best life. Jesus was living his best life. There was no better life. And he left it all to humble himself. And we call this live cast humble patron. And Jesus exemplifies it much better than anybody ever has before in robing himself in flesh and coming to this world to ultimately give his life as a sacrifice for all mankind. So I think that's the key, and I think that's the answer to it all, is looking to Jesus and seeing what his mindset was and trying to align our mind with his mind.
Awesome.
Amen.
C to 3. What do you think? You got any last takes?
No, man, I can't really even follow that one up. I mean, amen. That was it right there, Tim. No doubt about it. Uh, that's truth. That's Bible. No doubt about it. So I'm with you there. Um, it's it takes some effort, but again, I would just encourage everyone uh, to bring up their children in a proper manner and way so that they have a good understanding. Um, Trust me, it'll make all the difference. It's not going to destroy your children. It's not going to destroy you. It'll just allow you to understand again more clearer what the reason for the season is, and to live it out in a manner that you can exemplify that before other people, that they might be inspired to do the same.
All right. No, I agree with you. I agree with you both. And what I've really enjoyed to round this out to kind of wrap things up, you know, I, what I've really enjoyed the last few years of my life is around Christmas time, if not on Christmas, but around Christmas time, spending that with my fellow members with our churches. I mean, with our church, and getting around those people, and you know, ideally, those are the people you're going to be spending eternity with, and you want to spend eternity with, and you want to be able to fellowship with them. And I encourage anyone, like you know that's your family, and if you can't get around them and have a good time and fellowship and over food or whatnot, and it doesn't have to be any gift exchange. I know at our church we you know um, give out greeting cards, and I've never been into that, and and then now as I'm getting older, I'm like, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, family's starting to expand, let's go ahead and do the matchy shirts and stuff. But no, but just to be able to just have just that family, around those times, and really be an encouragement,
Mhm.
and just to really be able to love some people, and know that man, I'm gonna be with these people, when the Lord comes calling, and whether we're here or not, we get called in the sky, that that's what it's all about, and to reinforce each other around Christmas time and really give us a real grand perspective of what it's really all about. And I encourage anyone that may be struggling this year, or having you know, going through the motions, and struggling for even an idea what to do around this time, go to church. Go to a good, solid Bible doctrine church, and fellowship with those people. And you never know. You never know what'll come of it. Never know who you meet. In your life, your life depends on it. I think to a degree. And you owe it to yourself, and we owe it to the good Lord. And I see every child. We I'm involved with our youth in our church, and I see just when these kids come into a church facility or a program, and it doesn't have to be a $10,000 program or anything. You just got to have some people that want to be there, serve, and those children, man, they will have a great time. It could just be four walls and some color paint on the wall. And if you're talking about the holidays and talking about what it's all about, the
Mhm.
truths, I think that, a kid will remember that forever.
They
A
will.
kid will remember that Christmas forever. And I think that's a good way where you can start maybe making some changes. I mean, I listened to what you guys said tonight, and, you know, uh, I think that's a most definitely different perspective is, putting a child into something like that early and giving them those memories. Kids love memories, and when you grow up, you're just like, man, I have these memories. The memories of going to there, doing this, doing this, doing that, and I think you can do it when you get around some good Bible thumping, worshiping people. And so, I just encourage everyone that listen tonight. Again, I pray to God that you took something from this. I hope and pray that we've been a blessing to you. Again, if you have any comment, if you didn't like anything we said tonight, please comment. Write it out there, chat. Leave us a comment on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, uh, our YouTube channel, Humble Patron. You can jump here in talk shoe, and you can chastise any of us. We got thick skin, and each one of these guys right here would be more than happy and willing to discuss with you anything humbly. So before we get out of here, let's get a nice prayer, Brother Taylor, if you can this time, to send us out the right way, and we'll take it from there.
Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this opportunity. And Lord, any opportunity to be able to ultimately talk about you is a privileged opportunity. And so I thank you that I get an opportunity to fellowship with these men tonight who know you. And we're privileged to be able to know you. Thank you for your grace and your mercy that would allow us to come to know you and not just have a surface relationship, but Lord, that we would want to know you better and want to communicate with you, read your word and pray and have our relationship grow stronger with you. It's a privilege to have a relationship with the King of Kings and to be able to call you Father. And I thank you so much for Jesus. Thank you for robing yourself in flesh and humbling yourself and coming to us. We couldn't do it on our own. We could not fix ourselves, and we never can. And yet you gave us your righteousness in exchange for our sin. And so I thank you, and I thank you again for this technology that Lord has allowed both lies and truth. We know that technology can be used in a wrong way, but we're thankful that it can also be used in a way that would honor you. And so I pray that we'll continue to do that. I pray that you will work in the lives of us and of all those that have been listening tonight or will listen later. I pray that each and every one will come to know Jesus Christ as their personal Savior, and then they would really set their focus on living the rest of their days in light of eternity. We love you. We thank you for Christmas. And Lord, again, I thank you for these, my brothers, tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 To all our listeners, thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting us into your homes. Um, that was Christmas Chaos, first episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, please, again, comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next go around. God bless and stay humble.